Hi everyone. Today I would like to show you a few tips and tricks for my belt tensioner solution. I had quite a few comments in the diverse forums and Discord and so on, and I just wanted to compile everything in this one video. Maybe I can then help a few folks. So probably if you watch this video, then you know that I designed this belt tensioner, of course together with a lot of input from the Sim Feedback Discord community, so big thanks to them first of all. The belt tensioner works very well, I'm super happy with it. It's a nice addition, especially when you have already motion. It adds quite, let's say another layer of complexity for the immersion. What I tried to do when coming up with the design is I wanted to make it as compact as possible and also relatively easy to assemble. Myself, I'm not an engineer, so ideally I can use the tools that I have already in the house, and I don't have to come up with some clever machinery to be able to assemble this piece of kit here. So the belt tensioner is built up with a 90ST servo motor. I think this is clever to do because if you have already a SFX 100 with these actuators here, then you're also already using the 90ST most likely. So this motor here can work as a replacement in case one of your actuators is dying. So this is just a nice backup solution in case you really need it. Let's hope this is not the case. What I also tried to do with the belt tensioner is to run a 4:1 gear ratio. Why? Because there is actually quite a lot of power required, since we would like to tension 4 belts here. So there are also other belt tensioner solutions out there. The very famous one from Black Ghost, which is a super compact solution, also really clever design. I like it a lot. But it tensions 2 belts. So there you can run it from one servo motor and you can directly put it to the motor shaft. It's also not ideal because it basically pulls it in this direction. So there is some strength required from the motor to keep it in that position. But if you have 4 belts, you need more power, and that's why I built here this 4:1 gear ratio. And I also followed here the design of Hoernle, who came up with this first, I think. There are also some other Discord members who use gear ratios. I also try to follow basically a design that the power on the motor shaft is minimized, so this upward movement, and this I can do if I fix the motor shaft here with these 2 pillow blocks, and then there is basically not much effort required. So everything is fixed perfectly in position, which is quite nice. A few words to the assembly. You see here that if you compare this now with the material list that I provide in the guide, you will see that the parts, they differ a little bit. For example, these belt rollers here, in the newer designs, they have a different ending here. It's more angled. So this is the old design. When I assembled this belt tensioner solution, I afterwards also released a few updates to make it even more compact for you guys if you try to build one yourself. Also, these central profiles here, they are a bit shorter now in the material list, I think 5 centimeters, to make it also more compact, because you see that all of this profile part here I don't need. So we can make it even smaller. Apart from that, there is not so much room for optimization, because you see here already that it's barely fitting my hand here. So not much more room for optimization to make it smaller. So now a few points. If you already have this built and you want to know how to perfectly set this up, I fiddled around with it quite a lot in the last few months. These little rods that I put in there, also following Ender Farrell's design, who came up with this solution, It works very well. What you have to make sure is if you squeeze the belt in between the roller and this rod, you have to make sure that there is at least one turn on the roll already. So you see here, the belt is already going around this belt roller one time. You can also do it more often, because if it then pulls upward this direction, then if it would only hold with this little rod, the plastic here would probably break. But if you have it wrapped around the roller already, then of course it has way more stability, since the whole roller and this main rod here is also keeping it in place. What else is to say? These washers here, nuts, they are also very important because they fix the belt roller for this horizontal movement, but you have to fix it with Loctite. I did this without Loctite in the beginning, and you just cannot screw it hard enough against the roller that it will stay in position. But the Loctite fixed that issue, so now it's working perfectly. So what else? If you build this, make sure that the top row of the rollers is above your profile here. Because if you look at this, then you will see that it's above it, right? So horizontally, this is where the profile ends, this is where the roller ends. Why is this helpful? Because then the belt is directed above your profile and it doesn't scratch over it here, or scratch over it. So the resistance for the movement of the belt is minimized, and this is also very important. A few other things to mention. So how do you guide now the belt around your seat? This is highly dependent on which seat you have. I have a very cheap seat. I don't really recommend the seat, but the guidance of the belt works very well because I use here a design. So we just look at the top belts now, first of all. I use here a design from Folk53, also from the Discord Sim Feedback channel. He's a super clever guy, a proper engineer who comes up with very innovative solutions. And this is one of his solutions. I just adapted it to my seat hole here. And you see that what it does is basically it's an insert. It holds without any screw, and it has a round surface here on top. So the belt perfectly rolls over it. It's very nice, smooth movement. You don't have a lot of resistance, and this is important because any resistance that you save, you need less strength from the motor. The main advantage of such an insert is that the position where the belt rolls over it is higher than it normally would do when you use the whole of the seat itself. And this can be helpful if you now look at the pillow here. So let's say this pillow is your body. Normally your shoulders are somewhere here, depending on how tall you are, of course. But if the belt comes over the seat hole here, then it might pull down your shoulders if it pulls, right? So if this is too high, the pulling force on your shoulders could be more downwards, but you want to have it in this direction. So if you make this exit point here higher, above your shoulder point, then you have a better immersion here. What else can be said? So you see here how the harness is strapped on this pillow now. I use here a 2-inch belt. If you can run a 3-inch belt, it's probably better because you just have more contact area with your body. So I used these straps here, which makes it a bit wider to have more contact area. Also works. I bought a very cheap harness. I also cannot recommend this one because I had to modify it quite a lot with some 3D prints. I also had to add this 5th belt here. And this 5th belt is super important in my opinion because it prevents that this central belt buckle moves upwards. Because if you have only 4 and you have pulling force here, this is what happens. It just moves up more and more, But you see now that I fixed it, cannot move up. So what happens instead is that it moves in this direction, down. And that's exactly what you want to have, because you want to feel this tension in your waist area. Last but not least, what did I forget? So here, for example, there is another 3D print that I did, because you also have to think about how can I guide the belt around the seat in this waist area. And I designed this little piece here, very simple design. It is fixed to the actuator, which is quite neat, and then it guides it perfectly around it. And it's also rounded here, so again the resistance is minimized, and it doesn't scratch here these sharp edges of the seat. So this works quite well. Now this is how it looks like all in all. And one last comment maybe to the strength in the motor parameters. So if you set up your belt tensioner, there is this P8 and P9 parameter in the 90 SD controller. I set this to 75 and minus 75. For me, this is enough pulling force. So this is basically determining how much strength the motor applies to keep the belt in position. So this, of course, then is saturating at some point. If the pulling force is getting too much, you will not get more tensioning. So if you increase the value, you can run very high tensioning, but it's a question of preference, right? So for me, this 75 and minus 75 works. But I know others from the Discord that run higher settings. And here I cannot guarantee that this belt tensioner design would hold, because then you have suddenly a lot of stress for these 3D prints. Maybe 100 and minus 100 would work, but I never tested it. I can just guarantee that 75 and minus 75 works. Yep, I think this is everything I wanted to tell you. Let me know, of course, in the diverse forums, Discord and so on, or write me a message if you have more questions. There are a lot of little tricks, obviously, but also keep in mind that this is quite individual. So if you set it up, your belt tensioner, with your specific harness, your rig might require a different setup. Okay, have a nice day, guys. Bye-bye.